Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Reganelite's Viewpoint, episode 121 of this show, which has evolved since the very first show. We're going to be covering 6 different stories, and I've got 1 or 2 clips to go along with some of the stories as well. We're going to be covering tonight here as well. So we're covering mainly UK news for those who are familiar with it. So we have 6 different stories plus 2 funny videos, and I've got a very good one at the end here. One that I've already listened to before, which is a really, really good one. But I don't think many people are aware of the one that I'm going to be playing later. So really looking forward to that. We're going to be talking just a couple of run the card down for today. So we're going to be talking about the Hadush Kebatu, who got released from prison by accident. We're going to be looking at relatives and colleagues who have been killed because of the Afghan data leak. We're going to talk about that in a bit. The 5 Reform UK councillors that were suspended have been booted out of the party. We'll talk about that later. Nigel Farage branded his own MP's comments wrong and racist, and we'll be looking at a video where his actual response to that as well. We're going to be looking at another piece from Scunny saying stronger oversight on social media needed to protect MPs from abuse, a report says. We'll talk to that later. And then finally, the last news story is the sheer scale of Conservative mismanagement and the asylum system has been revealed. So we'll be talking about that as well. Those are the stories we got covering tonight. Stephen Banker, good evening to you. Pete's Music, good to see you there. Person Impersonator as well. Scott Hayes, good to see you all there. Hope you guys are all doing well. Apologies for not attending the 4 p.m. to Davies show. I could not. I just had to. I had other stuff I needed to get done. I just couldn't attend. I couldn't even put it on in the background with the amount of work that I had to do today, guys. So I do apologise to my Scottish friends for not attending. I can't always be there, I'm afraid, guys. So let's start with this first story here. I'm going to show you the headline before I take you to the video, because I do want to. Let me just check this video before we go to the video here. So ministers were warned against scapegoating prison staff over the mistakes release of Hadush Kebatu. The Justice Secretary blames human error, but others say there are systematic problems and targeting an individual is unjust. I completely don't agree with this assessment that one individual is wholly responsible for the release of this prisoner. I think it's a combination of things. It's a combination of failures, but I also have to wonder how something like this actually happens. How do you make a mistake like this? Is the question. Like, is it a case that they don't have the correct information, paperwork in order? Are they getting it mixed up with someone else's record? And I think that's a question that we need to ask ourselves here. Because I generally think that there is obviously, we know that the prison system overall is overcrowded. But I think fundamentally the system itself is how it's managed. Whether it is being poorly managed or whether it's understaffed, or perhaps the workers aren't putting the same. I don't know if it's a case of if the workers aren't doing enough work, because I don't think that's a fair assessment, considering I don't know what's going on the inside. It could be the case of that because of austerity, there's less workers to do some of the paperwork, admin stuff around it, and that's probably what may have been the cause of the reason why they had the release. This happened, but unfortunately, this might shock some people or might not. But this is not the first time the wrong kind of people have been released, and it's not just under Labour. This has also happened under the Conservatives. So I want to take you to this, guys. So David Lammy earlier today was challenged on this by Robert Jenrick in the House of Commons, and he gave a pretty staunch response to this. And I have to say, guys, look, regardless of how you feel about how you feel about David Lammy, I do feel his words were validated in this. Now, this is 3 minutes and 33 minutes long, but I do think this is worth listening to with regards to the case, guys. I'm not going to bother putting you guys through Robert Jenrick, because I think that's completely unjust, because nobody really wants to hear what he has to say. But let's just hear David Lammy's defence of what happened here.
The Shadow Justice Secretary, I'll give him this, he's smooth. But as my mother would have said, if he was chocolate, he'd lick himself. He should hang his head in shame. The crisis in our prisons that we're faced today is because of 14 years of failure under his government.
This is something that the Labour always needs to remind the public, that they were in power for 14 years. Things take time to build. Constantly need to keep reminding yourselves of this. And the government needs to continually keep using this message every single time. 14 years, 14 years, 14 years, 14 years, and that's it. That's all you need to say when it comes to the Conservatives whenever they try to talk about anything.
As they were packing their bags, and he knows this, to leave office, temporary release failures were under his watch. They presided over 17 mistaken releases per month. 17 mistakes were made under their watch. 17, yeah? That's like, obviously we don't know. I don't know what the number is now, but I can imagine it's probably a lot better under Labour than I'd probably say it's a little bit better under the Conservatives, but I don't know how much work they've been able to do in the time that they've been in power. This didn't happen overnight. It was not inevitable. It was the choices that his party made through 14 years of chaos. They said that they were the government of security and safety. They oversaw rising violent crime and crumbling courts and crumbling prisons. Again and again, they promised 20,000 extra prison places, and they managed an extra 500 in 14 years. They promised to remove more foreign national offenders from prisons. They failed. They promised investment and expansion in the prison system, but budgets stalled. They promised investment in the police, but again, we saw the police cut by 20,000. They promised increases in access to justice. We did not see that. We saw almost the collapse of legal aid. Violence.
Just I want to remind people about the justice system, in particular here. I remember I will never forget the story I read about how a woman had to wait up to 5 years before her rape case had to be heard. I still can't believe someone had to wait 5 years for a horrific case like that to be heard. That's just unreal.
Went up in our prisons. Self-harm went up in our prisons. Drug abuse went up in our prisons. And prison officer numbers were cut under his watch. And he comes here and has the brass neck to give the impression that this started just 14 months ago. Let me just pause there. William Fernandez was released in error in March 2021. He was a sexual predator. He raped a 16-year-old and sexually assaulted another young woman after he was let out by prison in 2021.
Now, the guy, the fella that got released under Labour, he has been apprehended. He got apprehended, luckily. And it was only over the weekend. But a perpetrator here who got released ended up causing more crime. And this was under the Conservatives' watch.
Was there an independent investigation? No, not from their side. Rayan Nubi, released in error in March 2023. Again, a man who was mistaken released from a Category B prison. Was there an independent investigation under his watch? No, there wasn't. Laura Matavoulis, again released in error in December 2021. Was there any independent investigation? None at all. And he comes here with the brass neck. I've asked Lynn Owens to look at this. I've asked her if she can do it in 8 months. Of course, we'll come back to the House when in 8 weeks, when that is done. And all of what he has said, what happened, looking over this period of time, is subject to that review. And then he says that the sentencing review
will actually let more foreign nationals out. He's wrong. We've actually brought down the threshold so that you can now be deported with just a suspended sentence. He knows that. Read clause 42 of the bill and he will understand it properly.
So whenever the Conservatives try to claim, oh, the government are failing, look at what they're doing, guys. They're doing such a terrible job. Yeah, and then you just need to just point those things out to them. It's just, yeah. Yeah. But does Labour have to take some ownership and responsibility? But the question is, guys, does Labour have to take some ownership and responsibility for this? This is still under their watch, to be fair. So ministers have been warned against scapegoating prison staff as they struggle to contain the political fallout of the mistaken release of an asylum seeker who sexually assaulted a teenage girl. As David Lammy, Justice Secretary, announced an inquiry and blamed human error for the accidental freeing of Hadush Kebatu from HMP Chelmsford on Friday. The Prison Officers Association has questioned why a single member of staff had been unjustly suspended. Why a single member of staff? Was it just one person's decision that made that mistake? Charlie Taylor, the Chief Inspector of Prisons, also said it would be very easy to throw an individual at Chelmsford under the bus for this when it was a systematic problem. Yeah. After Lammy said a stringent inventory would be introduced to stop further mistakes at release, governors said that a checklist won't cut it. The former Metropolitan Police Deputy Commissioner Dame Lewis Owens, who chaired the investigation into why Ethiopian national was freed on Friday morning instead of being sent to an immigration detention centre. He had been living in the Bell Hotel in Epping, Essex, when he was sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl, travelled to London after his release, and was arrested on Sunday morning in Finsbury Park after a 2-day manhunt. He was set for deportation in the Early Removal Scheme, ERS, for foreign national offenders, but was released into the community in what appears to have been a human error, Lammy told MPs. Mark Fairhurst, the national chair of the PRA, said that a union member at discharging manager was the only person to have been suspended when at least 2 other more senior staff members were involved in freeing Kebatu. One of our members has been unjustly suspended because he is not the only one involved in this entire process. Our thoughts are with him and we fully support him, Farage told The Guardian. Yeah, so I think it looks like that what they've done is they've suspended the person who basically made the call to let him go. But obviously it's not just one member. The suspended member of staff was responsible for going through the paperwork, ensure that the right prisoner was being released under the right conditions. However, the manager was checking paperwork that had already been processed by more senior staff, it is understood. So someone double-checked the paperwork, and apparently they didn't see the problem here. Taylor said prisoners being released early in error or even late was an endemic problem that needs to be fixed by prison service leaders. I think it's sympathetic of the chaos that we're seeing within the system, where the number of prisoners who are released early has gone up, he said. Serious mistakes have been made by HMP Chelmsford, which was a very busy reception prison, while an inspection at HMP Pentonville and unpublished findings at HMP Birmingham showed serious animosities of sensitive calculations, Taylor said. I think it's very easy to throw an individual at Chelmsford under the bus for this, but this is a systematic problem, and the prison service that needs to take some responsibility as well for failing to fix the issue, which has got much, much worse in the last couple of years, he added. 14 days before someone's release, a hub manager in the offender unit checks the paperwork to make sure that the right offender is being let out under the right conditions. So what was the hub manager doing then? Was he having donuts at the time? 2 days before a prisoner's release, the governor grade manager then checks the paperwork, the license and the warrant to ensure that the right person is being let out. So you have 2 checks. 14 days before someone's released, you do a check. 2 days before the release, you do another check. So you have 2 checks. And you couldn't verify on both of those checks of that fault. It is understood that the investigation will centre on whether Kebatu's status as a prisoner being prepared for deportation was on the paperwork or was missed by someone responsible for carrying out the checks. Yeah, so obviously the plan wasn't for him to be released. The plan was him to be deported. That was initially the plan. But what's happened is that they obviously didn't put in that paperwork that he was to be deported. That's what's happened here. And because they didn't see the paperwork of him being deported, the assumption is, oh, they've just let him go, according to the paperwork. Allegations of sexual assault against Kibu led to protests and counter-erupts. Epping, yep, we know about that. 5 days of guilty, we know about that. According to government figures published in July, 262 prisoners were released in error to the year to March 2025. 262. A 128% increase on 115 in the previous 12 months. In the comments on Monday, Lamy confirmed stronger checks on the prisoners will come into force immediately. Prisoners have been issued with a 5-page tick list that asks officers to check prisoners' details as well as their tattoos and scars against a photograph before they are set to release. However, the extra checks have been criticised by senior prison staff because they will increase workload and put more pressure on the system already struggling to cope. Well, then, what is the solution then? Because obviously, this is too many. This is far too high. So what is the solution? Well, the solution is obviously you need to hire more staff, but then that comes at a cost. So are the government going to cough up the money for it? In a statement, the Prison Governors Association said the government must reinvest in prisons after austerity broke our prisons. A checklist won't cost it, a statement said. Lamy said there's been a 30% cut in prison staffing under the Conservatives. More than half of the frontline prison officers had less than 5 years' experience. He says, little wonder with the system has been brought to its knees like errors like this happen. We must also be honest that the previous government approach to this crisis had added to the level of complexity and pressures, and that makes errors more likely. Yeah, and I don't care what Justice Roberts had to say there. So yeah, I do of course have a lot of, I do have sympathy with the prison system, with the prison officers and the workers behind, the admins behind it, because it is, I can imagine, an extremely stressful job. But at the same time, that the numbers of mistakes that are being made is just far too high. It is far too high, guys. It's just far too high. I'm just tired of misfiring brain, says Indie Duck. Good evening to you. Yeah, my brain's a bit fried at the moment. Probably because I've been recording all day. Suspended, sacked, surely would be the correct course of action, says Peak Music. Well, it's not right to blame one person. And we don't know who that person was. We don't know what exactly his role was. Where he was he the one that opened the gate? Was he the one that got the paperwork one? There's a combination of things here, you know. So I don't think it's right just to. I don't think sacking and suspending prison officers, especially when it's hard enough to maintain the ones that we got, I don't think that's going to help the solution. I personally think they should just investigate, what he did, and and just make sure I'd rather not sack him, if I'm honest, because, we're struggling prison officers as it is. Me personally, I don't think we should, because look, we are humans. Human error does happen. That is natural. But I just think the numbers are far too high, and I generally want to know what's causing the numbers to be far too high. That's the thing that bothers me more than anything. That's the thing that really sticks out to me when I think about it. And I'm thinking, why is this happening? So I'm sure there'll be continuous questions about it, but by the end of this week, he'll be out of the UK. The next story I got for you guys is also from The Guardian. At least 49 relatives and colleagues of the Afghans in data leak have been killed. A study suggests. Researchers also find 200 of 231 people notified by MOD of breach report threats to themselves or the families. As they said this, when this came out, when this data leak happened, I said that people's lives were at stake here with this data leak. And it's gotten out to the wrong people, and people have died as a result of it. Poor mishandling here. Those who are responsible need to face justice here, because people's lives have been lost. Now it says study suggests. I think we can safely assume that people's lives have been lost as a result, as a direct consequence of this data leak. And also, according to them, over 200 people have found themselves being threatened by threatened as well, or their families, because of this mess up. Someone's head needs to be hanged for this. Someone needs to take ownership responsibility for this. Well, luckily my window is shut because I can hear the foxes howling outside. This is just poor. Absolutely terrible. So at least 49 members, family members and colleagues of Afghans affected by the MOD's mass data breach have been killed, according to a research submitted to a parliamentary committee. The first on-the-ground research into 350 affected people in Afghanistan, the UK or elsewhere has found that of the 231 respondents who received notification from the Ministry of Defence that the data had been leaked, 49 responded that either a colleague or family member has been killed as a result of the data breach. The research submitted to the Commons Defence Select Committee inquiry into the data breach found that of those surveyed, 200 of the 231 notified 87% reported threats made to themselves or members of their families. Sorry, just 1 second. I need to just do something. Getting problems after problems. Sorry, guys. Getting one problem after another today. It's not going well. Hi, Billy Kershaw. Good to see you there. The research submitted to the Commons Defence Select Committee inquiry into the data breach found that of those surveyed, 231 notified, 87% reported threats made to themselves or members to their family, while 99, that's 43%, reported a direct threat made to their life as a result of the data breach. A total of 121 said that family or friends of Afghanistan have been threatened by the Taliban. In Afghanistan. Yeah, their lives are at risk, yeah. Absolutely scary. Yeah, I had to deal with something. Sorry. Oliver Clark, the Executive Director of Refugee Legal Support, which conducted the research in Parliament with academics from Lancaster and York University, said, this research lays bare the devastating human consequences of the MOD data breach by centering Afghan voices and documenting their experience. It filled a critical gap in the understanding of the real-world impact of the breach. Afghans who served alongside UK forces have faced renewed threats, violent assaults and even killings of families after their personal details were exposed. The UK government must act urgently to ensure their safety, accelerate relocation applications and provide proper redress for those whose lives have been put at risk. Details of nearly 19,000 people who have applied to move to the UK after the Taliban seized power in Afghanistan were leaked mistakenly in February 2022 by a British official. The previous government found out about this in August 2023 when details were posted on Facebook. A super injunction blocking reporting about the breach was subsequently imposed, preventing details being reported until July of this year when it was lifted. But the damage had already been done. The details were already leaked. Don't get me wrong, I said at the time that the super injunction, as much as people found it was outrageous that taxpayer money was being wasted here. I was more concerned about the lives of Afghanistans here, and unfortunately some of those lives have already been lost as a result. The Daily Telegraph reported in July that more than 200 former Afghan soldiers and police officers were killed in the wake of the data breach. However, it's not known how many of them had their names included on the data leak list. However, an MOD spokesperson referred to a previous review, arguing it is highly unlikely that merely being on a spreadsheet would be grounds for an individual to be targeted. Former Afghan National Army member in Afghanistan who took part in the research said, the delay between the discovery of the data breach in 2023 and the communication in July 2025 is deeply concerning and unacceptable. Waiting almost 2 years to inform individuals that their personal data was compromised has put many lives at risk unnecessarily. Immediate notification could have allowed us to take protective measures much earlier. This delay shows a serious lack of urgency and responsibility from the Ministry of Defence, especially considering the sensitive nature of our background from the high-risk environment that we lived in. So this bit here This is where the Conservatives have. There's questions here. See, I thought the super injunction would actually protect them, but I think what it done, it may have also. What it actually done is it didn't notify the people that were breached, and I think if they had notified the people they had breached, they wouldn't be able to implement the super injunction. But the question, I suppose, is why didn't the Conservative government warn the people who were data was breached? That's the question. Why wasn't they told? Because obviously they weren't told. The delay between discovery date 2023 and 2025. Why? Why didn't the Conservatives, when it happened, why didn't the Conservatives say something to the people who were at risk? In other evidence to the Defence Committee inquiry, a man referred to as Person A, who described himself as an independent volunteer caseworker working in Afghanistan at risk, said he was alerted to the data breach on 13th of August 2023 and flagged it to the MOD, but did not receive a reply until 21st of August 2023, and he tagged the Defence Minister in a social media post. He said he believed the UK government official had prioritised the wrong people for evacuation after the leak. He cited evacuation of farmers, barbers and gardeners before some members of the UK Special Forces who were likely to be at higher risk from the Taliban. One British Afghan submitted evidence to describe the MOD's failure to protect sensitive information as a reckless breach of betrayal of trust, while others said highly qualified Afghans who had been brought to the UK while working in jobs they were overqualified for, such as delivery driving. A resettlement scheme for those affected by the breach, the Afghanistan Response Route, set up in April 2024 after the recent Conservative government learned of the breach, had enabled 4,500 Afghans so far to arrive to the UK. The MOD spokesperson said the independent RIMA review conducted based on existing assessments, expenditures and reflections from current Afghan works focuses on those most able to provide high level of insight into the current situation as of spring 2025. It's concluded that it is highly unlikely that merely being on the spreadsheet would be grounds for an individual to be targeted. Yeah, but they only need to just... What they would have done is just gone through the names step by step and looked up each and every single one of the Taliban, and then just go and target them because they're obviously a threat to them. That's what they would have done. Surely that's what they would have done. Conservatives don't give a flying feck. I don't know. At the time, a part of me wasn't so sure about that, Stephen Banker. At the time when this came out, I thought at the time, a part of me felt that the Conservatives were doing this to protect people. Because the thing is that we don't know how much of that information was leaked out, like spread out to the Afghan when it was put out there. And I think this is a case. I don't think at the time the Conservatives intendedly wanted people to die in this instance. I don't think they did. Obviously, I could very easily be wrong. But I think what happened is that they opened the box. They didn't open the box, but the box got open and they tried to close the box. But what they didn't realize is that they couldn't close the box because the box had already been opened. And because they couldn't fully close the box, I'm using an analogy if you ain't getting it. They basically stuck tape over it and whatnot, but there are still gaps in the box. Because the problem is that the information was already put on the internet. But how many people actually took that information and spread it, we don't know at the time. It only takes one person to have taken that post and literally leak it to someone who relating to the Taliban. One person. We think it differently from the sticky tape and plaster thing it is. Any info breaches, no matter how little, is wrong. Yeah, I just think whoever was responsible for this has to be held accountable. But I don't know if a part of me feels like I don't think it's fair to say this is all the Conservatives' fault here. I do think this is individual mistakes as well. On this case, in particular, I can understand everyone just blaming the Conservatives because it was under their watch here, but I don't think it was simple as that. I generally don't think that the Conservatives' intention was to let Afghans die here. I don't think so. But people's lives, unfortunately, have already been lost, I'm afraid. One set of lies which I don't have much sympathy for is these 5 former UK councillors. So 5 Reform Russia councillors have been booted out of the party. So yes, guys. So councillors Bill Barrett, Robert Ford on the top right, claimed they were ousted over their criticism of the party's leaders, while the bottom left, Oliver Bradshaw and Brian Black and Paula Thomas have also been expelled from Reform UK. So apparently some people have just gone a bit too far with their language or some of their actions. And Reform Russia have realised, you know what, we're still, while we try to be far right, we're looking too far right, so we need to kick some people out because they're kind of making us look bad. So let's kick out a couple of people to show that we're serious about this. I'm not so sure how serious they are about this, if I'm honest, guys. So 5 Reform Russian county councillors have been expelled from the party for bringing it into disrepute and displaying a lack of integrity, apparently. Kent councillors Bill Barrett and Robert Ford, who criticised the party's toxic and incompetent leadership, were kicked out by email from Reform HQ, which said they had been undermining the interests of the party. Not a phone call, not even a text, just an email, guys. How do you get rid of a Reform Russian member? Just send them an email. Just send them an email, and that's it. Councillors Oliver Bradshaw, Brian Black, and Paul Thomas were also expelled for showing a pattern of dishonest and deceptive behaviour which the party will not tolerate, Reform Russia had said. It comes after a damaging video leak showing the Reform UK leader of Kent County Council, Linda Creshman, swearing and shouting during the county meeting. So she hasn't faced the boot. So these guys, so she didn't face the boot. Why didn't she face the boot? See, why didn't she face the boot? KCC is widely seen as a test case for Reform UK's ability to govern as the largest local authority in England. Councillor Barrett declined to comment, while Councillor Ford, Councillor Black, Councillor Thomas and Councillor Bradshaw have been approached by the BBC. Barrett, who's represented Ashford Borough, was one of 4 councillors suspended on suspicion of leaking the clip, something he's denied. Oh, okay. So, okay. He said KC leaders were toxic to decent Reform backbenchers, toxic to the opposition, toxic ultimately to the party's reputation. Councillor Ford was suspended for alleged unofficial complaints by female members of the KCC staff. The 59-year-old, however, has claimed that no details were put to him about where, when and how he acted, according to Local Democracy Reporting Service. There is not one shred of evidence against me, he said, adding that he now gets filthy looks in the street. The Maidstone councillor said he believes his expulsion was due to a strongly worded email he sent to other Reform councillors expressing his concern about KCC's leadership. Both Councillor Ford and Barrett have alleged they were bullied by members, which Reform Russia has denied. Councillor Thomas and Bradshaw were also suspended by Reform Russia following the video leak. In a statement following the leak, Thomas said he was still supportive of the leadership within the chamber. Liberal Democrat KCC Deputy Opposition Leader Richard Stellerfield called Reform Russia in Kent the laughingstock of the country. The longer this goes on, the longer Kent's reputation will be dragged through the dirt. After footage of her berating following councillors and using expendities was leaked to The Guardian earlier this month, Miss Kemmington said the culprits had committed an act of treachery. Treachery! They did treachery, guys. Mark Welke, good evening to you. Hope you are doing well. She later urged fellow councillors to back her in a letter which called her the best person for the job, who is leading with courage, integrity and discipline. A spokesperson for the party previously said Miss Kemberlin had the overwhelming support of the group as would remain as leader. On Friday, Kemberlin used a letter to 13 other authority leaders to explain the revelations which had dominated the headlines. She said the leaked video was of a private meeting which, by its nature, must be robust and frank, but it's first and foremost to be an integral group matter. She said the leaked footage was not a consistent KCC meeting, nor did it support the KCC officers. Everyone in that meeting had the right to expect that their views expressed will remain private to the Reform group, she added. Kemberlin said that she was aware the leaked footage caused concerns among some Kent leaders about KCC's intention or approach to local government reorganisation. She added that she did not believe that it is the answer to the major challenges our country faces. Kemberlin also repeated that her earlier accusations of other Kent leaders are shocking levels of ignorance and probable cause of reorganisation. This is what I was referring to in the private group meeting reported in the Guardian article. And this is what I've conveyed for you directly in person many times, she explained. They want her to, they are trying to make her succeed. And it's just like, oh dear, I dear. Well, you know, at least they grew something of a spine and sacked some people, I guess. At least they've done that. So, you know, I suppose they want to pat themselves on the back and say good for them, I suppose. But you know, it still doesn't change the fact that that footage is in particular, and some of the actions that they've been taking have been nothing short of being disgraceful from Reform Russia. Like, they've just not been like, even if we don't agree with their politics, right? There's a way to handle things. There's a way to talk to people. There's a way to manage things. And even they can't even do a good job of doing that. You know, like, even conservative MPs, you know, for conservative councillors, conservative politicians, they have a lot of faults, but like many other politicians, but they do good things. And I'm actually going to tell you something actually just might shock you. So I have seen, not once but twice now, good things that the Conservative Council, the Conservatives in control of Bromley, which is not too far from where I live. I'm in a Labour area, but there's a, not far from me is a Conservative-controlled area in Bromley, and the council who run that, obviously the constituency that's run by a Conservative MP and Conservative board and whatnot, they run Bromley pretty well. You know, some of the things and decisions that are made within there are pretty good. You know, even though I don't agree with the party and its politics, to be fair. Which is why they can keep getting voted in, because they're actually doing stuff on the ground on a local level. Whereas what are Reform doing are just throwing handbags back and forth at each other, which is not helping anyone. So guys, we're about 37 minutes in. We've got a couple more stories to go through here. Thank you guys for being here. I do appreciate it. Well, let's have a little bit of a break in between here. I actually haven't seen this funny video that we're going to play, so I have no idea how it's going to go. So it's either going to go terrible. It's going to go terrible for me, in which I'm definitely not going to get any super chats or gifted memberships, or it's going to go tremendously, and I will maybe get a super chat or gifted memberships. But let's see how this one goes. So it's from Garen. Can't go wrong with Garen, shall we say? And this is about Ireland getting about an hour of sunlight, guys. So yeah, I'm with Garen on this. Yeah, how little sunshine that we get these days. Anyways, take it away, Garen.
Not even 6 o'clock in the fucking evening. Pitch dark. Clocks went back an hour last night, so Ireland's getting about 45 minutes of sunlight. The weather's fucking shite as well. It's fucking raining as well. You can't see, obviously, because Irish people don't get the luxury of daylight after September. I'm still wearing a t-shirt, though. I'm not giving in that fucking easily. You do get an extra hour in bed, though, so that's a positive. But to be honest with you, I was thinking about just maybe spending a couple of months in bed. So I'll tell you the schedule for the sun now in Ireland. About 3 o'clock in the day till about 3:45. The sun comes out and has a quick wink at us. Then it fucks off. It's night time, then you're on your own. You'll just have to feel your way around. Anyway, I'm going to go inside now and have a cup of tea and a cry. So follow me. I'm delicious.
I don't think it's about an hour of sunlight, but it is. I like I said this morning on the Good Morning Show, I don't like that we have less sunlight as a result of the clock going back an hour. Do you know why? The other reason why I really hate it as well. That's on my priority list. It screws up the Discord events as well. So all the events on Discord where I have live streams scheduled to tell when the next live streams are up, right? All of them are off by an hour because of the change in our daylight savings. I'm so glad that my Restream did not adjust my timings for my live streams. At least is that I can at least say that as well. So, but anyways, Garen expressing my frustration and anger over how I feel about the daylight saving hours, and rightfully so as well. So this next one I've got for you guys is from The Independent, and we're going to hear from the Frogman himself. But first, I just want to read you the headline before we go and see what the Frogman had to say with regards to this. So Nigel Farage brands his own MP comments ugly and wrong amid the racism row. The Reform Russia leader said he was unhappy with what Sarah Potchin said, but that he understands the basic point. Okay, well, I don't have the full clip of him saying that, but what I do have here is a very nice clip here from Implausible Blog. He also gave us the Robert Jenrick one here. This is very good here from him. So he was asked, obviously, today about this. On the left here, Keir Starmer says Reform MP, UK MP Sarah Potchin's words were shocking and racism. On the right, Nigel Farage said her words were not intended to be racist. Okay, well, I'll let you guys judge for yourselves. Just before we do, thank you, Stephen Ron. Good morning to you over in New Zealand. Hope you are doing well, my friend. Good to see you there. Thank you so much for the 20 New Zealand dollars. Good to see you, buddy. Yeah, it's a bit. There's an hour difference, as you can tell, obviously, because our clocks went back here. But I hope you have a good Tuesday, my friend. Thank you so much for that very generous super chat. I really appreciate your support.
It's shocking racism, and it's the sort of thing that will tear our country apart.
But I don't believe they had a deep racist intention behind them. But if I felt the intention was deliberately and genuinely racist, I would have taken a different course of action.
So it's just because based on a feeling that Nigel Farage has, yeah, just a feeling that he doesn't think it was racist, you know. It wasn't intended to be racist. Like, based on his feelings, guys, right? Yeah, because that's definitely how you should run the country if you run the UK when you become Prime Minister, guys. Base your decisions on feelings, not facts, not opinions, no, on feelings, right? What could possibly go wrong with that?
Sarah's comments were ugly and out of place. They're not intentioned to be deeply unpleasant.
You say of Sarah Potchin's comments they were not intended to be racist. Do you think that you have to be intentionally racist to make a racist comment?
With words, it's always intentions that matter. People make mistakes, but it's intentions that matter.
With reference to...
She said what she said. But, like, how do you, like, so you're just saying the way she, but here's the thing, like, if you actually go back and listen to what she said on the on Talk TV and listen to how she said it with intent. She said it with intent.
To Sarah Potchin, you said that if you had thought...
I think I've said quite a lot of Sarah Potchin, to be honest. Unless you've got a very new angle, I think people have maybe had enough of this, but go on.
Mr Farage, I just want to ask another question. You said if you thought the intention behind it was racist, you would have taken a lot more action than you have today. Can we take that to assume that you have taken some action? And if you have, can you give us some details on what it is?
And as far as Sarah Potchin, I've answered every angle of that question I could possibly ever answer. I've been as upfront and as clear and as frank as I possibly could be.
Yeah, I'm sure Nigel Farage took very good care of it, guys. I'm sure Nigel Farage took very good care of it, guys. What do you think? Do you think he took very good care of it? Answers on a postcard, please. I'm going to go out on a limb and say he probably didn't, guys. I'm going to say he probably didn't. So describe the comments as made by one of his MPs as ugly and wrong after she was driven mad by advertisement featuring black and Asian people. The Reform UK leader said he was unhappy with what Sarah Potchin had said, but stopped short of calling her remarks racist. He told a press conference in London on Monday that he understands the basic point, but the way she put it, the way she worded it was wrong and was ugly. And if I thought that the intention behind it was racist, I would have taken a lot more action. I have. During an appearance on Talk TV over the weekend, Ms Potchin, the MP for Runcorn and Hesbury, responded to a viewer who complained about the demographics of advertising, saying she thought the viewer was absolutely right. She then added, "It drives me wild when I see adverts full of black people, full of Asian people." That's just pure racist. Here's the thing, right? And even Nick Ferrari, because I even listened to it. I didn't listen to it live, but I watched a video. Not all of it, but LBC watched one video of when different commentators were talking about this story, right? That even Nick Ferrari was like, and I agree with what Nick Ferrari says. Remember, don't get any ideas, guys. I'm not a Nick Ferrari fan whatsoever. But he's like, when an advert comes on, do I even pay? Like, I don't care what the person's skin color is. I'm just, whether it's a product I'm interested in, or whether I'm going to buy it, whether I'm not going to buy it, or whether I'm going to pay any attention to it. The normality is about the advert. And he's right. Like, who cares about why does the person's skin color on an advert matter? It doesn't matter. There's no reason it should matter. You shouldn't have a complaint about this. And I find it stunning that there are like, there are people reporting out the statistics of like how many black people have been in adverts, or how many Asian people, how many white people have been in, and I'm like, and my position is, who the hell cares? Like, who cares? They're, at the end of the day, they're out there to try and sell an advert. Like, they're trying to get you to buy a product. That's what an advert's to do, is trying to entice you. Like, who cares what the person's skin color is? And if you have a problem with the person's skin color, listen, there's no two ways about it. You're a racist. You're a racist. You're honestly a racist if you have a problem with a person's skin color in a TV advert, or any advert for that matter. It's just ridiculous. Joe, good to see you there. I hope you are doing well. Mr. Farage said he was unhappy with what the MP said, but that her remarks have been made in the context of DEI madness, a reference to measures taken by the government to ensure diversity, equality and inclusion. It came as Sir Keir Starmer described Ms. Potchin's comments as amounting to shocking racism. Asked whether the comments made by the MP were racist, the Prime Minister said, "It's shocking racism, and it's the sort of thing that would tear our country apart, and it tells you everything about reform Russia." He didn't say that last bit, but you get my point. He said that Mr. Farage had to face questions about it because either he doesn't consider it racist, which in my view is shocking in and of itself, or he doesn't think it's racist, and he's shown absolutely no leadership. Yeah, Nigel Farage hasn't got any. It's just crazy, absolutely crazy. Meanwhile, Shadow Home Secretary Chris Twat said the way Ms. Potchin had expressed her views was racist. Well, he actually said something useful. Speaking to LBC, he said she should absolutely have not said that. It was completely wrong. She has apologised. I think the way she put it was racist. She shouldn't have said it, and it's right she apologised. Earlier, it wasn't very. That's not very strong criticism of her, but okay. Earlier on Monday, Labour wrote to Mr. Farage asking him to urgently clarify whether he endorsed her comments or whether they were welcome in reform, while the Lib Dems have sought to censor a motion in Parliament to formally condemn Ms. Potchin's words. Speaking to Talk TV on Saturday, Ms. Potchin explained her objections to black and brown people appearing in adverts, saying, "It doesn't reflect our society, it doesn't reflect your average white person, average white family is not represented anymore." What again, like, here's the thing. Who cares about the person's colour of their skin? It's all about the advert. Colour of the skin should not matter. Like, if you have a problem with the colour of the skin, I'm sorry, I'll say it again before and after. You are a racist. Like, it shouldn't, like, why does it matter to you if you are seeing an advert of a white person, an advert of a black person, an advert of a brown person, an advert of a... When do we start saying, oh, what? When does it start going? It starts going from skin color. When do we start saying it from nationality? Or they start saying it with a different accent? You know, it's just ridiculous. Farage made his comments at a press conference in central London where he said that Parliament must step up and launch its own investigation into grooming gang scandal. Okay. Yeah, and they're just talking about the grooming gang stuff there. Yeah, that Labour obviously need to get more done on the grooming gang scandal, and obviously that overshadowed his conference there, which was not helpful, of course, to him. I'm sure he was not happy about it whatsoever there, guys. And she doesn't like adverts. I'm with her. Yeah, I don't like adverts too, Billy. You're absolutely right. I don't like adverts too. But do I care about what colour their skin is? No. This might actually shock. This might shock Sarah. This might shock her. But actually, I've seen adverts without humans in it as well. I've seen adverts with robots and aliens in them as well. Maybe that might not be might be problematic to her there. That might even be worse for her. Like not even getting a human person on the advert. That might even be even worse for her. So this is an interesting story here from Sky News. Here we go into this one here, but I do agree that more needs to be done. Stronger oversight of social media needed to protect MPs from abuse, a report says. A new report recommends the ways to protect MP from toxic political discourse. Now, I think one of the ways is they need to be politicians of all politicians need to have more priority of protections from people online. And this is where social media companies are failing to do that. Yes, they should be protecting all people, but I feel that they need to be doing more for politicians. Because politicians have a very important job of obviously trying to benefit and because they're politicians and they make big decisions, they should be doing more to protect them. And I don't think they're doing enough. And I agree. And Twitter is obviously a prime example of a place that's gotten incredibly toxic. And while Facebook and Instagram also have their places as well, it's not to say that there isn't problems here. More needs to be done. And I think that our government and politicians are too weak to tackle and engage the social media companies because these companies have a lot of influence within the UK. And I just think they just need a bit more bolder and a bit more braver, if I'm honest, when it comes to this kind of stuff. So the Speakers' Conference, a cross-party group of MPs, has put together recommendations to address the current climate of toxic political discourse. So the recommendations include the introduction of election codes and practice of Ofcom, the media regulator, and new legislation under the Online Safety Act to address emerging threats such as disinformation, deepfakes, and doxing. So Lindsay Hoyle, Speaker of the House of Commons and Chair of the conference, said, "Standing for election representing your community is something that anyone should be able to aspire to. But the current climate of toxic political discourse is having a corrosive effect on our democracy and is discouraging people from participating in our democratic process. The perception is that it is acceptable to abuse public figures must end." The report also calls for a review of how misogynistic abuse is treated under hate crime legislation and urges political parties to provide tailored support for female candidates. It advocates for improved citizenship education in schools and a national public awareness campaign to challenge the normalisation of abuse towards MPs and promote political engagement. Yep, I'm for more of this. I think this definitely we can take action for those who are perpetrators here in our country. Obviously, people from outside the UK, it's a lot harder to engage with, though. So when it comes to somebody applying abuse and whatnot from outside the UK in another country, especially if like somewhere in Africa or Asia, like it's even difficult. I think it's even difficult for even if they're in Europe or America. Like actually coming after the person can be difficult. But I do think what we can do with regards to our own here in UK, we can take action, and this is definitely something that can help. Do I think it's going to fix all the solutions? Absolutely not, but it is steps in the right direction. It also includes recommendations for greater media regulation. That's something that should be in the tabloids as well, shouldn't it? Including encouraging politicians and the press to participate more in long-form interviews to avoid oversimplification and misrepresentation of stories. So Lindsay said the Speakers' Conference report makes clear recommendations to government, the police, the media, the wider civil society on how we can uphold freedom of speech and ensure accountability, while reducing threats and ensuring greater security for candidates, MPs, and our democratic institutions. This one here is like that's a hard one. Like there's always going to be people out there who are going to clip or are going to edit certain things that people say and put it out there to say that they've said something else. There's always going to be a twisting of words there, in some way or another. The onus is on all of us to moderate political discourse and ensure it does not cross the line into abuse, intimidation, or violence. I will continue to work with all relevant groups to protect and defend our democracy. Speakers' Conference was formed last year and was brought together to consider specific topics. It had similar powers to select committees and can request documents, call witness, and take oral and written evidence. The conference published its first report in June, which made recommendations on how the response to threats against MPs, candidates, and elections can be strengthened. The report found that 96% of MPs surveyed had experienced abuse, and nearly half of their staff had felt unsafe as a result of abuse. Second stage of the work focused on what can be done to reduce the levels of threat posed by MPs and candidates. Yeah, I agree. If we can just tackle these kind of things, that would be a good step in the right direction. It is a difficult one, indeed. But I do think that I mean, the one that sticks out more than anything is obviously Twitter. And the thing is that it's easy for people to say, yeah, they shouldn't be on. They should just boycott Twitter. They should just boycott X. But the problem is that there's a lot. There's a good base of public voices on there. There are British public on there. It's not all the British public, of course it's not. But it's still a place where information can be found, information can be shared, statements can be also made on there. And it can very easily spread very easily spread your voice and your opinion, especially as a politician on there. It's very easy for that to come out. So I think for a lot of politicians, I wouldn't be surprised that probably most politicians would probably not be on X if they weren't. If they were suffering the abuse and they weren't politicians, they probably wouldn't be on there. So I think is the best way to say. But I do think that they need to do more to hold social media companies, in particular, to account. Obviously, I do think, it's also like a lot of this sounds good on paper. I kind of wish they would just do something about the tabloids as well and our own media, not just social media here. Because while we are talking directly about social media, obviously one of the things that are plunging the UK into the dangers of reform Russia, of potential future reform Russia government here, is the fact that our tabloids and our mainstream media are not being fair when it comes to news coverage and their formation, which is why we definitely need the Leveson inquiry enacted. But we know that's not going to happen, guys. My throat is going, that's why I need to drink lots of water, in case anybody's wondering why I'm gulping so much, because might have been because I've recorded like 18 videos today, possibly. Jao says, my mum had two sisters. She is brunette. The other sisters, one was a red hair and the other a blonde. Okay. Yep, we are blue with the cold up here, says Mark. Yep, it is chilly. Did talk about it on the weather report this morning. Some are from here. Lots of people, images of Portuguese actors. We have all types of people from the southerners to the northerners, says Jao. Finding social media companies per percentage of profit works in the EU. Maybe the UK should do the same. Yeah, I think the UK needs to do more against social media companies, that's for sure. That's one thing we definitely need to do more of. Whether we will is no matter. So I've got, like I said, I've got one more. I've got a funny video at the end to see ourselves, but we've got one last story to go through here. So we touched on it a little bit this morning, but we'll talk a bit more with it here from Byline Times here. So the sheer scale of Conservative mismanagement of the asylum system has been revealed. So billions of pounds were wasted by successive Conservative Home Secretaries on a chaotic and costly system that left vulnerable people at risk, according to a new parliamentary report. So 3 Conservative Home Secretaries wasted billions of pounds on a chaotic, costly and mismanaged asylum accommodation system, with a new highly critical report from MPs reveals. Priti Patel, Suella Braverman and James Cleverly presided over a surge in the cost of providing accommodation for asylum seekers, which means the cost of a 10-year contract estimated at £4.5 billion in 2019 is set to rise to £15.3 billion by 2029, where Labour has pledged to end its use of hotel accommodation. £15 billion of taxpayer money, guys. Think about that. Think of that. £15 billion. Where that money could go, guys. Many of the contracts signed by the Home Office to provide accommodation was flawed. Clauses to claim back excessive profits by providers were rarely used, and no penalties were issued by the Home Office for poor performance. No attempt was made to claw back any excess profits until last year. So when they say until last year, was that when the government's changed over as well? They didn't care. They didn't care that these companies were ripping off the taxpayer. The Conservatives did not care. And we think the Conservatives are bad. You think reform is going to care about taxpayer money being wasted? No, they're going to be even worse than this. They're going to be even worse than this, guys. As a result, tens of millions of pounds are still in private providers' bank accounts, which could have been collected by the Home Office and used for other public services. The report also warns that the current Labour government that it needs to urgently address the shortcomings of risk further public disillusionment over a system which has led to public protests in places like Epping. Chair of the Home Affairs Committee, Dame Carrion Brady MP, said that the Home Office has presided over a failing asylum accommodation system that has cost taxpayers billions of pounds. Its response to increasingly demand has been rushed and chaotic, and the department has neglected the day-to-day management of these contracts. The government needs to get a grip on the asylum accommodation system in order to bring costs down and hold providers to account for poor performance. Urgent action is needed to lower the cost of asylum accommodation and address the concerns of local community. While reducing hotel use is rightly a government priority, there will always be a need for flexibility within the system, and the Home Office risks boxing itself in by making undeliverable promises to appeal to a popular sentiment. It shouldn't set itself up for more failure. Quote, the Home Office has not proved able to develop a long-term strategy for the delivery of asylum accommodation, and it is instead focused on short-term reactive responses. There is now an opportunity to draw a line under the current failed, chaotic and expensive system, but the Home Office must finally learn from its previous mistakes or it is doomed to repeat them. The number of asylum seekers in accommodation reached a peak under the last Conservative government, when Priti Patel proposed that the now on-board scheme to send asylum seekers to Rwanda. This led to the Home Office ending the processing of asylum seekers. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me. This is the bit that really infuriates me more than anything here. That part right there, that angered me the most. Because as soon as they were going to set up the asylum seeker thing to Rwanda, they said to themselves, excuse me, they said to themselves, oh, we don't need to process them anymore. No, we can stop processing them now. And I remember at the time, sorry guys, I've got something here, so I do apologise. So, and it's just like, this is what made things worse. And which was why we ended up with the backlog that we did, because Priti Patel didn't bother anymore. They didn't bother anymore. It's like, no, we're just going to send them all to Rwanda. And it's like, you haven't even set up the system yet, and you're just going to turn off the taps for processing them. This led to the rush use of hotels where costs are much higher. Hotels cost an average of £144 per person per night, and the Home Office spent £4 billion last year on support for asylum seekers, with £2.1 billion spent on hotels. Only one large site housing asylum seekers is left, Wethersfield, a former RAF base in Essex, which can house 800 single males, and a further 445 on a contingency basis. This costs £132 per person per night. That this does not include the £105 million spent on acquiring the site and making it suitable for asylum seekers. The report is also critical of the poor standards of accommodation provided for asylum seekers and raises questions about safeguarding due to children being forced to share rooms with single adults. It says that the Home Office has a poor understanding and oversight of the vulnerabilities of an asylum seekers. It also reports that asylum seekers are too concentrated in hotels in many areas, often where there is lots of deprivation or near airports. The highest number included the London boroughs of Hillington and Housecourt, Crawley, Stevenage, the London borough of Newington and Blackpool. MP said ministers had an opportunity to tackle these problems next year when there is a break in contracts and they can renegotiate on some of the poor deals agreed by the last government. We've still got to wait for these contracts then. A Home Office spokesperson said that the government is furious about the number of illegal migrants in this country and in hotels. That is why we will close every single asylum hotel, saving the taxpayer billions of pounds. We have already taken action, closing hotels, already slashing asylum costs by nearly £1 billion and exploring the use of military bases and disused properties. The use of hotels is a bit odd. Why not use army bases out of use, for example? Safer and better to provide support and swifter treatment of claimants. They're not very. There is some of that being used, Jal. The problem is at the moment as I pointed out, the backlog was so immense because what they did was they stopped processing under Priti Patel when she was Home Secretary. The Conservatives were not doing very much processing at all. So what you were doing was building up all these people so much, and then once Labour came in, they've been trying to obviously get on top of it, trying to get the processing done, trying to process as many people as they can. Like, I remember in the first couple of months, they sent like they deported, like, I think it was like 10,000 or 1,000, 10,000, something like that. Like, they deported a lot of people in the first couple of months they got into power. You know, Yvette Cooper was really on top of that. You know, on top of really clearing the backlog. But obviously, it's still quite a big backlog. Still going to take time because you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people that every single application needs to be checked off. You know, and that's just such a long process for these workers to go through. It's such a long process. So I can understand why it's still not been dealt with. It's just something that's going to take time. I do think that Labour does care about this, and I think they take it far more seriously than the Conservatives do. That's for sure. I then rarely use to form there. I learn. Talking about something else there. Mr. Skim, good to see you there. Hope you're doing well. I do okay speaking, but it takes a native about 5 seconds to place the region my dialect comes from, says Indy Duck. My farmer has a field. He gets 100 bales of hay from a field. He has 100 fields base, says Billy Kershaw. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with that, but okay. Okay. Wow, did we really go through all these? Wow, we went through these a lot quicker than I expected, guys. Okay, guys, so I've got one funny video to see ourselves out before we go. And I did say this one was a good video, to be fair, as well. So let me make sure I got the right setting on this one. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. This is a really good one here. It's Michael Spicer here with, you know, Mike Graham is misunderstands absolutely everything. That's what the video is called, guys. Because Mike Graham absolutely misunderstands absolutely everything because it's Mike fucking Graham. So let's hear Michael Spicer with this video from his channel, Michael Spicer, on Mike Graham misunderstanding absolutely everything. Because you will misunderstand absolutely everything if you end up like Mike Graham. Did you get all that?
Now it's time for Mike Graham Misunderstands Absolutely Everything, Episode 1, Mike Graham Misunderstands Refuse Collection.
Okay, so who are you then? What do you do? I'm a refuse collector. Refuse doesn't need collecting, mate. It needs throwing away in a bin. Yes, after you throw it away in a bin, I collect it. No, you don't. I put it in a bin in my kitchen and then it disappears. No, someone in your family puts it outside of your house on collection day and I come along and collect it. What? Are you off your bleeding bonds? What lefty nonsense is this? Put it outside. How much is the taxpayer paying for this? I don't know. It depends on your local council. This is outrageous. Who's collecting my rubbish? What do they need it for? Are they perverse or something? I think perhaps you need to be better briefed before your guests come on. Are you all right? Yeah, I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm a talk radio presenter. You give rubbish out to bin perverts. No, I mean you've got some black stuff coming out of your mouth. No, I haven't. That's complete. I think we should take a short break, actually. You're listening to Mike Graham on Talk Radio in association with WeBuyAnyCar.com. Find out how much your car is worth in under 60 seconds.
And there you have it, guys. Mike Graham misunderstanding absolutely everything. Can't believe it. These lefty tofu weaking nonsense guys. You know, you put your bin out, and then these people, random people, come and take your, you know, people are taking your rubbish. It's absolute woke lefty nonsense. I can't believe it. Oh, absolutely. These wokey lefty people coming out, taking our rubbish away. Who the hell do they think they are? They think they can take our rubbish like that. Absolutely terrible, guys. Absolutely terrible. Ah, dear, oh dear. So, guys, I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who's come along today. Thank you, guys, for all your comments. Thank you, Steve McMahon, for the 20 New Zealand dollars. I really appreciate that super chat. Martin Brisk, thank you so much for being a member for 16 months. I just saw that there. Good to see you, buddy. Hope you have a good day. And I just want to remind you guys, I'll be back again live tomorrow at 11 a.m. for another good morning show. So you can join me for that. Feel free to do so. I'll also be back tomorrow at 6 p.m., not 8 p.m., 6 p.m. for another global news. So if you guys can join me for that as well. And, oh, wow, Steve Moran gifted 5 gifted memberships, but it looks like only one registered. Only one membership registered. Thank you for that, Steve. But look, oh no, wait, is it working? Sometimes it doesn't always work. Oh no, it's gone through. It's gone through. Oh, it has. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't always work, the gifted memberships. Oh, thank you so much, Steve. Really appreciate that. Before we see ourselves out, Wales has been gifted a membership. Phil Neeson has been gifted one. Ginger Lefty there. Martin Hauer and Madbunk33 have all been gifted memberships there. Thank you so much, Steve, for your support. I know you can't always be here because of the time differences, but I do appreciate your support. Thank you so much for that. I really do. I don't know if 6 o'clock is a suitable time for you for tomorrow, but obviously I'll be back. 8 o'clock. We'll be back on Wednesday for the Reganelite's watch along show, so hopefully you can join us for that Wednesday. As for Thursday, guys, some of you guys may have seen it on the home tab already, but I'm going to be doing conflict. It's not going to be called Snowflake Conflict. What have I can't even remember what I've called it now because that's how crazy it is. So yeah, we're going to be looking at conflicts on Thursday, guys. So no guest this time. No, we've not got an Eco-Flake show because we had one 2 weeks ago. We're going to be looking at conflicts, so we'll be looking at different conflicts, Sudan, Myanmar, all sorts of conflicts there on Thursday night, guys. So I'm actually looking forward to it because it's been a while since we've done one. I could have done a USA only live stream, but I don't think that's. I think actually covering conflicts would be far more valuable information rather than hearing what Donald Trump has to say. So, guys, have a great rest of the week, whatever you guys are doing. Make sure you take care of yourselves. As you know, temperatures are staying cold, so please keep yourself warm as you can as well. And hopefully I'll catch you guys all very soon. But just before you guys head out, if you can for me, hit that like button, share this across social media, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I would like to get to 2,500 subscribers before the end of the year if possible. We're not too far away. If we can get there, that would be great. I was hoping to get to the end before sneezing and bollocks. Bloody bollocks, guys. We had howling foxes. I had myself yawning. And I was sneezing right at the end. Ay. Damn it. And also do check out content from Patreon and Rumble, which will be dropping over the week as well, guys. And links for all that stuff is in the description. So thank you all so much for watching. And I hope to catch you all very, very soon.